This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. We begin this half hour in Israel with the war in the Gaza Strip, shifting into a new phase as warships in the Middle East also change positions. And Hamas terrorists admit to Israeli interrogators they use civilians as human shields. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more. It's our top story.
The Israel Defense Forces announced that they're releasing 5 brigades from combat in the Gaza Strip as the military is gaining more control on the ground. However, the IDF says the war against Hamas will likely continue throughout the rest of the year. And as the IDF lowers the intensity of the fighting in northern Gaza, Israelis in 6 communities between about 2.5 to 4 miles from the Gaza Strip will be allowed to return to their homes after being evacuated following the Hamas massacre on October 7th.
In accordance with the recommendations given by the IDF and the defense establishment, we will soon be able to return communities home in areas within a range of 4 to 7 kilometers north of the Gaza Strip to their homes.
And while Israel's military pursues Hamas, the country's High Court of Justice struck down the law passed by the Knesset to remove some of the Supreme Court's power. The measure would forbid justices to negate a law because they don't find it reasonable, but the High Court voted 8-7 against the law, which fueled months of anti-government protests before the war. But the battle over the High Court's power may not be over, although that fight may not continue until after the Hamas war is over. Meanwhile, the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier is returning home after an extended deployment. The Ford was sent to the Mediterranean to be within striking distance of Israel after the October 7th Hamas massacre. And Israeli fighter jets struck terrorist infrastructure in Lebanon on Monday and Tuesday, where Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorists were operating. Back in Gaza, the Israeli military kept up its attacks on Hamas and revealed what it learned about how the terrorists hide among civilians.
During the operation in Khan Yunis, our forces identified suspects who were hiding among women and children. During interrogation, it was revealed that they were terrorists, some of whom participated in the terrorist attack on October 7th. Whether the terrorists are hiding in tunnels, hospitals, or by civilians, we will reach them.
The IDF also released footage of the interrogation of 2 Gazans who gave details of how Hamas used civilians against Israeli forces. An Islamic Jihad member told how Hamas stopped Gazans from evacuating and instead transferred them to the Shifa hospital. The terrorists stayed underground there until they realized the IDF was coming, and then they mingled among the civilians. A Hamas member told a story about a family who didn't want a Hamas operative to plant a bomb by his apartment because his children were inside. The terrorist told him he would put it between the father and his wife instead. And when the man kept arguing, the Hamas member shot him in the leg. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
A network of retired U.S. special operators connected during a business program are now working to help their Israeli counterparts get the support and supplies they need to take down Hamas. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke is on this story.
Version Bravo is an entrepreneurship program designed to bring together retired U.S. and Israeli Navy SEALs and help them translate their unique military skills into the business world. But when Israel went to war, the relationships formed by these special operators have proven to be invaluable.
We have different channels where guys can communicate with one another where, everyone used it a little bit differently. Some guys chose to update on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, say, hey, this is what happened this week, just checking in, want to let you guys know. Or, hey, I need help, connecting to this type of company or an investor that invests in this space. Can anyone help out?
After October 7th, Version Bravo Global Director Nuri Golan, a retired Israeli Navy SEAL himself, noticed a shift. Business networking went on the back burner, and the training that developed as special operators resurfaced.
I got texts from almost every single alumni who was asking, how can I help? From like helping with equipment to doing things a lot, like wanting to come and actually physically be there and help out in the country.
Retired U.S. Navy SEAL Rory Grayman heard Israel needed night vision goggles. With a supplier only an hour away, he jumped in the car and personally tested them out.
Those guys are letting us know that, hey, we're getting deployed to, we're in Gaza, or, hey, we're looking for this help. And there's no hesitation on any of the U.S. guys' part to try to help out however they can.
Grayman believes every Israeli member of his Version Bravo cohort is now back in active military service. And his own background gives him a pretty good idea of what they're dealing with.
War is definitely tough. I've had 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan myself. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. And getting any of that help offered to you, through any source is something that was what I appreciated when I was in.
Nathan Wilkins, also a retired U.S. SEAL, believes the bond with his Israeli counterparts goes deeper than just shared military experience.
We're praying for each other. We're encouraging each other and supporting when they needed it.
From his vantage point, Golan says despite all Version Bravo has already accomplished, it's the relationships that inspire him the most.
We're really excited about the future of this program. We know that the impact that we can see immediately, forget about the businesses, which obviously that's like the core thing, is helping guys get their businesses off the ground. But the strength of the relationships that we're seeing built and bringing the communities together, to me, is worth every ounce of effort that we put in.
Version Bravo first launched in 2020. They plan to welcome the 3rd annual class once many of the veterans serving in the war in Gaza are home. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, with the ongoing conflict in Israel, we're going to take a look at what Scripture and Jewish teachings have to say about war. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Since biblical times, Israel has had to go to war against its enemies. That's led Jewish scholars and rabbis over the centuries to explore what Scripture and Jewish teaching have to say about war. Chris Mitchell has more now from Jerusalem.
Now in its 3rd month, Israel is fighting a war for its survival against Hamas. CBN News talked with Rabbi David Gottlieb about when Israel goes to war.
So let's start with the basics. The highest, most basic value in Judaism is life. And at the same time, we have a nuanced, or you could say sophisticated approach, and understand that sometimes, painfully, the greatest way to protect life is war. And war necessarily means the act of killing other people.
In the Bible, Ecclesiastic chapter 3 states, there is an appointed time for everything, including a time for peace and a time for war.
When there are Nazis or Hamas terrorists, it would be wonderful if they would all just surrender and stop killing good people of all faiths. But when you have ruthless enemies who want to kill good, innocent people, unfortunately, sometimes war is the moral answer. And Judaism, certainly in the broad strokes, absolutely endorses war when necessary to protect morality and life.
The Bible provides many examples of Israel going to war.
Really goes back to Abraham, who, by the way, we know was a man of peace with the open tent. And yet, when did he first go to war? To rescue a captive, his nephew Lot. So it's very reminiscent of what we're doing now. And of course, as you mentioned, King David, the same sublime soul who wrote the Psalms, was a warrior when he had to be.
So when does Israel go to war?
The values of morality, of respect for innocent life, of only killing when absolutely necessary, but when necessary, not hesitating to do so, those are firmly sourced both in the Bible and the rabbinic tradition. In the rabbinic tradition, there are only a very few circumscribed times when we would go to war, but the best example of that, which is the one we find ourselves in now, is a war of self-defense.
Israel defended itself after October 7th, when Hamas murdered 1,200 citizens, injured thousands more, kidnapped hundreds, and destroyed entire communities. Now a growing international movement accuses Israel's military of disproportionate use of force and genocide. Rabbi Gottlieb says the IDF fights by a code of conduct.
There is a principle that guides the IDF. It's called Torah Neshek, or the purity of arms, and it is one of the most restrictive codes of conduct of any army in the world, surpassing even the United States of America in terms of its rules of engagement. So certainly we take it very seriously. And as the father of 2 sons and a son-in-law who were called up on October 7th, I, on the one hand, am very proud that I know that they will be fighting only based on the rules of absolute morality. On the other hand, I am nervous because Israel bends over so backwards.
This tendency can often put IDF soldiers at risk while doing what they can to warn and protect civilians in Gaza.
I mean, is there any other army that weeks in advance of a mission is sending leaflets and making thousands and thousands of phone calls warning people? We totally lose our strategic advantage just so that we can hopefully warn innocent civilians. I don't know of any other government that does something like that. But Israel does, and we're very much proud of this as a moral force.
Rabbi Gottlieb sees October 7th as one of the most painful moments in modern Israeli history. It remains seared into the hearts and minds of the Jewish people and will not be forgotten. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, this man was suddenly struck with colitis, lost 80 pounds, and wound up in a wheelchair. See how a change in his diet took him from 100 pounds to 170 in just 12 weeks. Stay with us. Jordan Rubin was just 19 years old when he was suddenly struck with severe colitis. Over a 2-year period, he lost 80 pounds along with the ability to walk. Then, in just 3 months, he went from a wheelchair to working out. Lori Johnson shows us how a change in diet completely transformed his life.
While serving as a Bible camp counselor, Jordan Rubin became suddenly ill with an inflammatory bowel disease so severe it eventually caused him to lose 80 pounds and the ability to walk.
I didn't understand how a young man who was living for God, I didn't do all the normal things that people do at college. I was ministering to people. I wanted to go into ministry. And here I was, having a fate that I considered worse than death.
After being diagnosed with Crohn's colitis, Jordan saw dozens of doctors over a 2-year period. Then he met gastroenterologist Joseph Brasco.
It was curious to me that he didn't really seem to have any good response to anything.
That changed, however, when Dr. Brasco helped Jordan adopt a diet to help balance his gut microbiome. That's the ecosystem of good and bad bacteria in the intestines that scientists have discovered can have wide-ranging health implications. The key for Jordan was to follow a diet putting lots of good bacteria called probiotics and other healthy foods into his system while staying away from items that led to the growth of bad bacteria.
12 weeks after I started this plan, I went from 100 plus pounds in a wheelchair to 170 pounds on my 21st birthday, working out on the beach.
Now, years later, the two are sharing the plan that turned Jordan's life around in the book, The Probiotic Diet.
When I was healed, I knew that God had now purposed me to share this message of health and hope with his people all over the world.
The diet is for people struggling with all kinds of digestive problems.
Fatty liver, diverticular disease, certainly irritable bowel, chronic constipation, chronic diarrhea. These are the kind of bread and butter conditions that we see in the office here. And I do believe that these are greatly improved with, if not completely eradicated, with a diet like the probiotic diet.
It begins with taking a daily probiotic supplement, then moving to consume the various foods and beverages containing these healthy bugs.
Think about cultured or fermented dairy, yogurt, and kefir, which is available everywhere. Even high-quality sour cream has probiotics, and cottage cheese has probiotics. Sauerkraut, kimchi, and pickles, if they're made the right way. Apple cider vinegar has probiotics. Kombucha, kvass,
While many of these items may seem new, most are actually very old.
Fermented foods have been part of the human culture forever. Maybe the last century or so, that we've started to move away and become so fearful of bacteria and not realizing there are things that are actually good bacteria.
Probiotic foods were very popular in the Bible. And so if you hear about Sarah killing the fatted calf, getting curds, or David delivering to his brothers against the Philistines curds, they weren't simply cheese. This would have been a yogurt or a kefir or perhaps a cheese.
Since the good bacteria are alive, like most living organisms, they need food called prebiotics to survive and reproduce. Fiber, like the kind found in vegetables, helps that good bacteria to thrive in our system. So the diet includes those veggies and other fiber-rich foods like fruit, beans, and whole grains. While a healthy gut microbiome involves adding lots of good bacteria and fiber to our diet, it also involves subtracting some other items. Those include processed foods and sweets, which can lead to a bad bacteria takeover.
We've had many people, and they come in with chronic GI disorders, and we say, look, just get rid of sugar, and please don't add sugar substitutes. We see them back a month, 6 weeks later, and the vast majority of them are significantly better.
So while millions look for relief from painful digestive problems, for some it can be found in the form of an ancient diet full of fermented selections and whole foods created by God. Modern scientists recently discovered this old plan can help us feel better by achieving the right balance of good and bad bacteria in our body. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming up, a new campaign to spread the gospel of Jesus. We're going to tell you more about it. Coming up right after this.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
After about 20 years of little to no outreach in North Dakota, the global ministry Pulse has launched a 2-year evangelism campaign to canvass the state with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Mark Martin spoke with the founder, Nick Hall, about the effort to reach all generations.
He's alive tonight in Fargo-Moorhead. He's alive.
Pulse, North Dakota has an ambitious goal: reach every person in the state with the gospel over the next 2 years. That's close to 800,000 people.
This is us coming back home. There's leaders here that are, they've been tilling the soil, they've been working, they've been praying. And I would just say it's harvest time, not only in North Dakota, but I believe in our nation right now.
North Dakota is the home state of evangelist Nick Hall. He says he has a heart for it and has been praying for an outreach to happen there for 20 years. The goal is to unleash young evangelists to share the gospel all over the state in towns of all sizes.
Reaching all ages, all demographics. It might not be big for you, but man, it's big for that town. It's big for that individual that comes out. And man, I'm just beyond excited. I believe this can be something that can be replicated elsewhere. But bottom line is, we're just trying to be faithful while we can. Jesus, I believe, is coming soon.
Hall says 200 young evangelists will take part in the campaign.
We want to hit every nursing home, every prison, every juvenile center, every recovery center, and really just sharing the good news of Jesus and hopefully raising up a generation to do the same.
22-year-old Jessica Sanchez is one of those evangelists sharing the gospel.
I've never been to North Dakota before. But when I did go, I was really amazed about, people just were coming up to me and they were like, my daughter needs God and I don't know how to reach her. And she's young and she doesn't think that she needs Jesus. But then she looks at, people who are passionate about Jesus.
Pulse, North Dakota kicked off in November with the Reason Tour, a family Christmas experience. It involves sharing the true meaning of Christmas, giving people the chance to respond personally, and then plugging them into local churches and ministries.
We've been going across. We've seen thousands of people through these events come to know Jesus. Every night on this tour, hundreds are responding. Every night, people are catching a vision for reaching the state.
Paul Ninus is a North Dakota pastor working alongside Pulse.
I hope of course, that we reach as many people as we possibly can, that it just awakens our state with a revival of the gospel from the youngest to the oldest. But I also hope it fires up our churches and it brings down some of the walls that may have existed historically as we think about how we relate to each other, and we can just be united in mission.
A mission to reach North Dakota with the good news of salvation through Jesus Christ. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and today I offer this thought to post, tag, tweet, and share with those in your circles of influence. God's grace is sufficient for the day, and His grace makes it possible for you to walk in all sufficiency. Trust Him at His word. He supplies all you need. All sufficiency is yours in Him. That's true, no matter what your reality looks like, sounds like, or even feels like. Again, trust Him at His word. He doesn't lie. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can also find them online at both places at any time. Also, take a moment. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. That address is newswatch@cbn.com. We certainly would love to hear from you. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us as well on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you make this a terrific Tuesday and join us right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.